All right. Hey, gang. My name is Noel Joshua Hadley. Welcome to the Unexpected Cosmology. We're live right now. Of course, this is another kind of impromptu episode of Kingdomverse, something that I put on every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Discord, which is, even though I'm broadcasting from YouTube right now live, I'm also on Discord. And this is where you go to ask questions. If anybody has anything they want to talk about that's been in the news, a lot's been on. It's been a very surreal week for sure, the last couple weeks. And everything that's happening. Of course, we had Operation Tanya Harding in the last 24 hours go down. If you guys have something you want to say, maybe it could be conspiratorial, biblical, anything you want to share, raise your hand. Come in. This is one of the perks and benefits to being on Discord. If you're not a member of the Tuck Discord community, I highly suggest you do so. And you could find that link hopefully underneath this video and come sign in for the next time we do this. And of course, like I said, we meet every Friday. So if you guys would like to raise your hands, this show tonight will be as long as we have questions coming in. You can ask questions on YouTube as well. Good to be here with you guys. So I'm just going to sit here and drink coffee for a while. And if that's something that you guys are into, then you guys can do it. I mean, I could totally like do a book reading where I'm just maybe I don't even read it out loud. I could just sit here with my book and just kind of turn the pages quietly. You guys could watch that. You guys could watch me read, whatever float your boat. But like I said, if you guys do have something that you guys want to share, come on up. I know that we have, he was in the audience. John Q's in the audience. Hopefully he will enlighten us with his take on the news. And we have Matthew, always insightful. And we have Pamela in the audience. My laptop situation is resolved. A couple weeks ago, if you watched it, you kind of saw it happen. It was only an hour and 15-minute presentation. It was supposed to be like 2.5 hours. It was a long one, and it was called "Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire," in which I was going through New Testament passages, referring. Of course, the "Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire" is a Revelation 21:8 song, which talks about the liars go to hell, famous song. And towards the end of it, basically my computer got fried. I was in a hotel room. You can see I'm in a hotel room now. I'm actually on the road. I'm traveling 400 miles tomorrow to my next location. And my computer, like the keyboard was toast, and the plugins didn't work, and I had to get a new computer. It looks like it's resolved at this point. Also, for those of you interested in going to our Tuck retreat in March of this year, the dates are on the website. I don't have them in front of me. Was it March 22nd through the 25th or something like that? We still have beds available. If somebody would like to come, if you would like to join, email me, talk to me. We can work it out. I see Polly, you're here tonight. Welcome to everybody who's here. And like I said, anybody who wants to raise their hand in the Discord chat, come on up, talk to me. Love to hear from you guys. So the theme of this year's Tuck Passover retreat, which aside from the fact that it's the Passover, we will be having the Passover together, the first day of unleavened bread together, really, I guess the first 2 days of unleavened bread together. And the theme is going to be the new covenant, the better covenant. And I feel like maybe just throwing that out there and leaving some of you to be like, what is that? What are you saying? Or what you talking about, Willis? But it is the new covenant, or you could call it the renewed covenant, is the better covenant. And that's going to be the theme of it. I have a few different presentations I'm getting ready for. But it's just going to be a good time of being in Arkansas in the woods together as a family, just, having a Tuck after party every single night, staying up late, hopefully. I don't know. Some of us might be crazy and stay up till 2 to 4 in the morning. Not really sure. And we'll be zombies by the end of it. But it's Wednesday through Sunday. And come on out, everybody. I see a lot of you are typing right now. We have two things going on. We have, of course, YouTube and Discord. I see a lot of you are typing over here in Discord. It is coffee and tea time. I'm drinking coffee right now. Seriously, guys, there's a lot we can there is a lot that we can talk about tonight. A lot. And I mean, we have the recent Antarctica expedition by what was called the final experiment between a few globies and a few flat earthists, worth talking about. We had the first week, really, it's first 2 weeks of the Trump presidency of the second administrative term. To talk about a lot of things going on there with the border, with ICE. We had the plane crash today or last night. Ashley, you said, and now the true names, and now I'm starting to believe in the little season and that Yahusha is Yahweh or Yahuwah or Yahweh, however you want to pronounce that. I am, of course, in absolute agreement. I didn't start out that way. It's been something I had to be willing to look into. And one of the things that determines truth for me is when, there's so much different research out there. And the fact of the matter is that you can kind of craft your worldview and then base your quote unquote facts, your research off of that. You can, you kind of go off in these different directions and make it sense to you. And that being said, hold on here. I'm just reading some of the comments. When I'm confronted with different ideas of biblical truth, I'm going to go with the one that expands the vision of the Bible and makes it most clear. Now, right now, I'm in the middle of a series on what I started by calling it Jesus Taught Torah. And the follow-up was Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. Tomorrow night will be the Apostles Taught Torah. And then the conclusion of that, I will get the fourth part will be Paul Taught Torah. Dun, dun, dun. And, it just makes the most sense. It makes the most sense that when the entire 90% of the Bible says that the Torah abides, that it's eternal, that, we don't disregard that, right? It makes the most sense. Well, the same thing with the whole argument of Yahuwah in the Paleo, or we could say Yahweh or Yahweh, Yahuwah, is Yeshua or Yahushua HaMashiach. Makes the most sense. It's one of those hurdles that's really hard for some people to even fathom. And they're like, what are you saying? That Jesus is the Father? No, he's Yahweh. Yahweh was always the Son. He wasn't the Father. That's one of the hard things, because we grew up hearing Jehovah is the Father, and maybe we just had it wrong all that time. So shalom, everybody. Welcome, those of you who's coming in. I was asked by John, Noel, did you ever do something with Paul Stobbs recently? And of course, that's from the YouTube channel Understanding Conspiracy. It was probably close to a year ago. He brought me onto his show and interviewed me. It might have been March of 2024. So I'd have to look at the records. And then I brought him on like 2 or 3 weeks later onto my channel, and we talked about the little season. He brought me onto his channel to talk about my thoughts on the little season and then in the Millennial Kingdom. And then I brought him on, and he talked more about the Nephilim or clowns theory. And so yeah, that was good. And I've noticed in the last year that it's really taken off, because a lot of I've been talking about the Millennial Kingdom. I started talking about in the summer of 2020. And back then, as I pointed out, I didn't know anybody else. I would look all over for anybody advocating it. I found one guy. He was a Torah guy on Facebook. I don't know what happens to this guy, but I saw him on there. I'm like, sweet, someone else is insinuating that the Millennial Kingdom already happened. He was getting just tons of ridicule. He's like, come on, guys, and look at these photos. It looks like and people were just mocking the guy. And so, I started talking about it for a few years. It wasn't really gaining a lot of momentum and steam. The whole Tartarian movement was building up. That there wasn't a huge amount of interest. But then all of a sudden, it seemed like about a year ago, it just kind of took off. And all these new guys show up out of nowhere, and a lot of new guys out of nowhere. The whole YouTube channel is blowing up. And I've kind of pulled back from the talk a little bit, just because, first of all, I've spent 5 years talking about it now. And 5 years is a long time to talk about something. I kind of want to focus on bigger areas, other areas of the Bible. But I think I got a little burnt out just watching how many people are into this. They're just completely what I would call lawless, meaning like it's just bizarre for me that the research I put forward was that the idea that there would be a 1,000-year millennial kingdom was a Nazarene idea. It was what you would call a Jewish idea. It was a Torah-based idea that the Roman Catholic Church, they hated it. They would point out specifically anyone who thinks this is an idiot because that there's going to be 1,000 years physical reign because this is a Jewish idea. It's a Torah idea. They didn't like it because it literally was this idea of a Sabbath rest, and they had done away with the Sabbath by this point with Constantine. So I find it really difficult to watch so many individuals proclaiming that the millennial kingdom happened, but then they're like, the Sabbath was done away with and the feast days were done away with. I'm like, I don't know. I don't need to go down that path tonight. I do agree that the millennial kingdom is as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like an extension of the flat earth debate. And I don't even know if there are any. Has anyone seen any globe earthers? Man, this mouse is driving me crazy, guys. Has anyone actually seen any globe earthers actually pronouncing that there was a physical manifestation of the millennial kingdom? I don't really know. You're asking the question. Someone is asking the question. I can't post it on my video. That if the so he's saying that Noel is saying what's called the tetragram is the son and not the father. That the son dealt with Moshe in the original covenant before he became a flesh body, which is what I'm saying. I'm saying that Yahuwah personally saw his covenant with Abraham all the way through. When he formed with Abraham, the one he formed with Moshe, and he saw it all the way through, and he became really what started with Adam, that he created Adam and he promised that he would follow through with it. So this question is, do we know the Father's name? That's the next question. And so the thing about the Father's name, and I've shown passages from ancient books that they would say, the ancients would say that the Father's name is unknowable, knowable. It goes beyond really even human language. And so in the word we say God in English would be to modern Hebrew, which isn't really Hebrew, but whatever, modern Hebrew, the Masoretic would be Elohim, and then the Paleo would be Allahayam. And so when we talk about the Father, we, according to my quote unquote theory, my conviction that Yahweh is the son of Allahayam, we would refer to the Father as Allahayam. And that's, it's kind of interesting that one thing that bugged me for a long time is Messiah is saying, Yahushua HaMashiach is saying, I came to make my Father's name known. And it's like, well, wait a second here. How come none of the Gospels talk about where Yahushua is saying like Yahweh or whatever, my Father Yahweh? He doesn't say that. He just refers to his Father in heaven constantly. Find that really interesting. And of course, then I've shown that we see the apostles themselves, Paul, I mean, there are specific instances where Paul literally straight up says that Yahuwah is Yahushua HaMashiach. We said that with the others. I don't need to make that whole case tonight. But if it's a doctrinal difference and you're really holding on to the fact that Yahweh is the Father and that his son Yeshua appears as the Messiah in the New Testament, fine. That's it. It's one of those things that is not worth arguing over. I do, however, one of the things I love about this is that you have, as the Torah movement is growing and growing and growing. What I mean by that is more and more people are waking up to this idea that we are grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel, and that we are the righteousness has not changed, the definition of truth has not changed, the Torah of heaven is eternal, and they're waking up to this and going, oh wow, you mean when I go into eternity we're going to be righteous according to the Torah? Like, I want to start keeping that now, right? As that is growing, we have another movement. It's kind of a duality we see exploding onto the scene, and they come here all the time. They come to my YouTube channel, they leave comments all the time, they try to infiltrate my group all the time. I hate to say this, but I hate to even pronounce this, but they're the people that are saying that Yahweh is Satan, that he is this evil entity. He's this like our entire Bibles is, we have these Bibles in our houses that this evil demiurge entity came in and became the God of Abraham, the God of Moses, and then Jesus, this lawless individual, shows up to liberate and free people from the demiurge. It's the dumbest view on so many accounts, because you literally have this system where this Jesus figure is born into a satanic religion. He is raised by satanic parents. He adheres to Satanism, and he commands others to keep Satanism. And he quotes nonstop from satanic text and attributes them to his father. And then you have all of his apostles just quoting satanic text. You see what I'm saying? Hopefully no one is going to, play this out of context and make me sound like I'm one of those individuals, very evil individuals that are proclaiming that. But when you recognize that Yahuwah is the Son, he manifests the Messiah, he is the lawgiver. I have shown that the judge, the king, and the lawgiver are all the same entity, all the same individual. So Yahushua HaMashiach was the lawgiver at Mount Sinai. That I find that to be a beautiful story. Some people shriek in terror at that. Fine, if you don't want to believe that. I find it to be absolutely stunning and beautiful that the very individual who was out Mount Sinai came down into a baby and lived the life that nobody at Sinai was capable of doing, not even Moses. Perfectly what I mean. I mean, each of us can choose whether we keep the Torah or not. We can choose to transgress or not. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. But the difference with Messiah is that he perfectly kept it. He never transgressed. He was a spotless lamb. Nobody here listening can claim to be a spotless lamb. I mean, maybe you were a spotless lamb today, maybe, right? But in your entire life, no, that didn't happen. So, Michael, you brought up the time travel. That's another big one right there that I've put work into, and showing that the Transfiguration, Yeshua is transfigured in front of Moshe and Eliyahu or Elijah, which is a problem if they're dead, right? Because now you have a prophet conjuring the dead, which is explicitly against the Torah. That is, he would be transgressing the Torah if he brought up the dead to commune with them. We see the same issue with Saul, with the witch of Endor, when she brings up Samuel. And so there's a lot of different theories on this. Some people are like, well, it was a vision. It was just a vision. Well, okay, if it was a vision, then it wasn't really Elijah and Moses, and that's not impressive at all. All it was Project Bluebeam. That's all it was. He was just talking to not even AI. He was talking to these projected things up on a screen. They're unconscious because they're dead. That's not impressive. I've heard people explain it that way. I'm like, yawn, next, give me something else. But it is interesting that in the Old Testament, we have Elijah and Moses both go to Sinai, and they both meet Yahuwah in person. And my thought is that this meeting with Elijah and Moses is outside of time, and he is literally like, he's conducting business. Like, he's conducting business with Eliyahu, saying, Look, it changes the whole meaning too when he's like, "Oh, believe me, I have servants who have never bowed a knee to Baal. I know you think you're alone right now, Eliyahu, but believe me, I have others who have never bowed a knee." And he's speaking from, several hundred years in the future at that point. And then with Moshe, he's actually dictating the Torah to him. He's like laying it out and being like, I'm just letting you know, like, this is like what's going to happen in the future. The Yahudim and Israel, they're going to be disbanded and this kind of stuff. They're going to disobey. But he's like conducting this kind of business. And it makes sense if he is the lawgiver, if he is Yahuwah, that he would be doing that. All right. I need to be reading your guys' comments here on the side. Right. So that's the thing about Woke. You said in John, Mashiach says so many times that he only does what he sees or hears his father say or do. If you guys saw the presentation I gave about a month ago on the separation of darkness from light and the fall of Satan, I asked you guys to overlay those passages with Genesis 1. And this idea that I showed extra biblical texts, a few of them, and they gave this story that the angels were created in darkness. So some people say that he didn't create anything in darkness. Fine. If you don't want to accept these texts, that's up to you. But he's explicitly said on the dawn of the first day of creation, he created the angels in total silence and darkness. And these angels, when they were created, all the angels, I take this to mean the sons of God too, they were left to wonder in their own minds if they were self-created or somebody else created them. If they like self-existed, if they are their own gods or creators, they didn't know. He didn't reveal himself yet. And then when the light is brought forward, this is, of course, in the passage in Job when the sons of God and the angels shouted out for glory. They see Yahuwah brought out in the light. This is the son heir of creation. He's brought out, and he's like, I'm it. I'm the, and they're just excited, except for Hasatan character. Now, we can get into specifics. There are at least 5 big bad Satans according to Enoch, and so on and so forth. But let's just keep to the basics here. So this Satan character, he's the first created of all of them, and he starts looking around. He's observing that others are popping up, and he's like, I was here before each of you. Like, I was here first. And he doesn't accept Yahuwah coming out. And so I asked you guys, like in John, when Yahuwah or Yahushua Mashiach is going before the Pharisees, he's like, you guys are the sons of Satan. And if you guys, if you walked in the truth and if you walked in the light, you would know that I come from the Father and I speak according to the Father. So you imagine him coming out having that same talk where he said he's coming in front of Satan and those who were with him and saying, if you were in the truth, you would know. Like, if you're a liar, you say you worship Allah, but you don't, because I just came from him and I only say what he says and I only do what he does. So there's that there. Hopefully I addressed that question. This mouse is driving me crazy tonight. I'm surprised nobody has any speaking requests. Does anybody want to come up and talk to me? Holly, I don't know if you're saying yes to me or yes to somebody else. Yeah, so oh yeah, Polly, you're talking about the 7 spirits of Allaham. Hey, welcome, Polly. If you're speaking, I can't hear you. It could be on my end. Let me do a quick voice check here. Yeah, I should be able to hear you. Okay, good. So nobody can hear him. It's not just me, Polly. Nobody can hear you right now. Just so you know. And he left the stage. He'll be back, I'm sure. Hey, John Q.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Just doing a check just to verify that it was Polly and not something else.
It is verified, and I understand you want to talk in a little bit. Are you free right now, or do you want to come back?
Sure. Yeah, I'm free.
All right. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
It's been quite the It's been quite the week, or the last 2 weeks. A lot has happened, and I would be curious to get your take on everything that's been happening with the Trump administration.
Man, we could be here all night because there's been so much going on.
No, okay. Now maybe we could start, because we can start here, because inevitably what happens, I find, one of the things I've been trying to show, I've dramatically changed over the last couple of years, and I think you've seen. I think a lot of people have seen it, and where I used to be 100% anti-government, evil, unredeemable, and starting to see that I was having to back up my position a little bit and recognize that I was wrong, that divine justice does come through government, that Yah is on the move and he works through government. And inevitably, when we have these kind of conversations, so quickly, if somebody has not been a part of that over the last couple of years, one of the things that changed me was in July of 2022. It was a month of my daughter Rivka was born. I do have a couple of twin sons. For those of you out there who don't know, people hear me talk about my daughter so much. And that was the year that that was the month that Roe versus Wade was overturned, which of course was illegal to begin with. It was a bit of an illusion. But I was shocked. Everybody was shocked by that. And I had to reconcile with I thought this is great, but I had to reconcile with some thoughts, because I'm like, am I happy that the government did this? Because what this means is that there will be less babies killed in the womb, living human beings killed in the womb. And what I started to find is that, so when we get down these certain kind of conspiratorial paths, there's the conspiracy world, the truth of the world, is very much like the paradigm of Democrat Republican, and you have these very different kind of school of thoughts. And one of them is that the government is always up to something. Even if it looks good, it's still negative. It cannot possibly be good. And I started asking the question to people: are you happy? I mean, this is what you want, right? Abortion is evil. And it's like, yeah, abortion is evil. And do you want there to be less abortions? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, are you happy that the government did this? And I get silent, zip lips, because they can't admit to the fact that the government did something good. Because if the government did something good, it overturns like this whole paradigm that a lot of us have been kind of sucked into. And so I bring that up because as you start talking about some things, Jacques, I know inevitably there's going to be these commenters out there saying they're going to bring up, like, I'm on YouTube Live, so I don't know all I can say, but like Zionism. Oh, Trump is aligned with Zionism. Okay, fine. He's aligned with Zionism. All right. So let's just ignore everything else that's happening and just focus on that one negative thing, right? It's kind of like this, like in relationships that go south, like where you just focus on that one negative thing, and there's nothing good that can come out of this person. So I say that, yes, there are still negative things. Maybe you don't feel that way, John Q. I don't know, but let's talk. How has the last couple of weeks been for you?
Yeah, and I'll just preface it by saying that Yahweh hasn't abandoned us. We're not here each on our own little world where he's completely left us. He's sitting up there as a deist would say. He's wound the clock of the universe and set it down and is just watching the show, right? He is actively involved not only in our individual lives, but he's actively involved in geopolitics as well. I mean, the the heart of the river, the heart of the king is like a river in the hand of Yahweh. He turns it whatever way he wills. So you can't just blanket, in my opinion, you can't just blanket say, oh, it's just two sides of the same coin, or what have you, because Yahweh has a will and a purpose in human history, and he's going to carry out that will and that purpose, and he's going to use sinful men to do that, sinful men and women to do that. And so my perspective is, look at what's going on. Ask yourself, is this something good that's happening or something bad that's happening? Is this justice being served or injustice being perpetrated? And give the glory when justice happens, when something good happens. Give the glory to Yahweh, and as opposed to, by default giving it to Hasatan. Why should we give glory to Hasatan for something that by all rights is his glory, is his doing? We should be very careful not to do that, right? So that's kind of my perspective, where I come from on that. I do recognize that the Republicans, the rhinos, and Democrats, they're the same thing. I would say rhinos are worse than Democrats, because they're just pretending to be on the side of justice when most of the time they're perpetrating injustice. So. But this week, man, I mean, where did we start? Just all kinds of justice happening, all kinds of good things happening, things that we want. Oh, so let's start with 300,000 children, have been missing. We've found like 85,000 of them, I think, is what I saw. These are children that have been sex trafficked into the United States through our southern border. I mean, that's right there. That's something to be ecstatic about.
Yeah. And this is okay. So let me backtrack again a little bit, because inevitably it's so hard to have this discussion where it seems like there's a lot of kind of baggage attached to this. And so I'm trying to think here what I wanted to say. I just lost my train of thought, John Q. I just lost my train of thought. So, oh yeah, here it is. So let's give a scenario here right now. Now, RFK Jr., just yesterday, he was being grilled in front of a bunch of visor, can I say that? A bunch of visor shills. And so RFK Jr. is a big threat to the big pharma people. And let's say that he accomplishes nothing. All right. Now, I know, John Q, you probably think he's going to accomplish something, but let's just assume for sake of argument that he accomplishes nothing. This is what I want people to kind of understand, to see where I'm coming from here. And so what's going to happen is people are going to come to me and go, no, it's the two wings of the same bird, same thing, nothing changed. I'll be like, no, that's actually not true. That is completely wrong, untrue. We have seen in the last 4 years, we have seen more people wake up than in these waves since the COVID pandemic, since any other time in my life. It has been unbelievable. There was a lot of people waking up around 2015, 2016 through like Flat Earth, the Torah, the Mandela Effect, things like that. A lot of the 9/11 truth. I'll say it, Sandy Hook. I never know what I can't say on YouTube Live anymore. But with the quote unquote stolen election in 2020, whatever happened there, we have seen an unprecedented amount of people waking up. And this is why I'm excited. Some people are just going to remain bitter and keep to their hatred towards anything that can come out of the government. And I'm like cheering. I'm cheering guys like RFK Jr. on, because he's out there like making these cases about the naughty Nephilim prick. And people everywhere are waking up to this. I don't see how this is a bad situation. I see this as more and more and more and more people looking into things realizing the propaganda, the legacy media, the lies in the legacy media, recognizing the corporations and the attacks on the family life. I mean, do you agree with this, John Q? Am I rambling here?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And I don't agree with RFK on all of his positions. I don't agree with Trump on all of his positions. I doubt I agree with anybody on all of their positions, right? And that's not a bad thing to have disagreements. It's actually a good thing to just come together and discuss disagreements and listen to other perspectives. Iron sharpens iron, right? Like
yeah.
But yeah, RFK. I mean, he's on a mission. I think Yahweh has placed in him this desire to bring healing to our children, like our children in our country, in the United States. And there may be some here listening from other nations, but the United States is just dead last in our food quality, and there's just the disease epidemic it's insane. We have so many children who, and this is on YouTube, so I'm going to kind of try to be somewhat, discreet here, but just, suffering from all kinds of injuries and things that it's just unnecessary. And so, I do believe that that his desire, which you can tell is sincere, and I believe that desire was placed on his heart by Yah, and that Yah has put him on this mission to do something about it. And I think he's going to accomplish it. I really do. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. So I'm okay. So let's mention some of the things that happened this last week. We got we got the water turned on in California. Apparently, we've got ice down on the border. We've got a bunch of some Marines right down in the leaving camp. They left Camp Pendleton. They're down on the San Diego border. What are some of the things that he passed in his? Okay, here's one. Like 20 years ago, this would have been if I could time travel back to the year 2005, to the year 2005, and I could do a podcast like this, and I say, guys, in about 15 years from now, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to look around the country and you're going to see that people worldwide, as well in America, they don't know how to define a man or woman before. Now just believe me, guys, in 15 years time, we're going to have hundreds of potential sexes, and the science is going to change. And people would be like, they would just laugh that up. Like, that's the stupidest thing. Like, that's not true. That's just so stupid. I mean, at this point, 15 years ago, or I should say 20 years ago, we didn't even have same-sex marriage at that point. That finally passed in California. I think it was 2008. Was it Prop 17 or Prop? There's a 17 number, John Q. It was something like that. And then it went on from there. It spiraled. And so when you have a president, like him or hate him, some guys can hate him all you want, but he's basically like, okay, I'm going to pass this executive order and say that the government is only going to fly one flag. We're not going to fly all this other junky flags, which I hope everyone could be happy about, that you don't have to go see that all the time. But also that we're going to define a man and a woman. There's just two sexes, XY, XX, man, woman. And I feel like a lot of people can't be happy about that. I feel like a lot of people are upset about that because once again, it's like it almost like if we kept going down this cliff that the Biden administration was pushing, it would give some people a reason to be happy because they could then justify their dislike for the government. Hopefully this makes sense to everybody. And I'm just thinking, like, no, I'm glad. It doesn't make, like, as far as I'm concerned, America out to be the quote unquote good guys. It just means that we are not going off this insane direction where now, men are, I have a little daughter. I don't want men walking into her dressing room and that kind of stuff. So for me, this is a good thing. I could be happy about that. And I think that a lot of people are getting their wires crossed and thinking that if you recognize that, that the government can do anything correct, anything good, that it somehow displaces a lot of our own research. And I just don't agree with that. But anyways, anything else, John Q? Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, so we restored like the service members who were discharged for refusing to take the cookie. They were restored with full back pay. That's justice right there, right? So we can celebrate that.
Now, was this military or was this all federal?
This was the military.
Okay.
Executive order to protect children from chemical and surgical mutilation. I mean, yeah, that's good. We don't want to be turning our little boys into girls and vice versa. Expanding educational freedom and opportunity for families, like getting school choice, taking action to implement school choice, giving, part of that agenda that he talked about on the campaign trail is, school choice doesn't mean just your traditional schools. It can also mean homeschooling and things like that. So there's going to be more support for homeschoolers and opportunity there, which is going to be amazing. Ending the radical indoctrination of our K through 12 schools, like, getting woke out of the classroom, right? Like these are all really good things that are happening. So, I mean, but you're absolutely right. Like, this doesn't make our government good. There's so much evil and corruption. Our government needs to be rooted out. Our government needs to be shrunk back down to, a good constitutional size and scope. But that was the promise of the MAGA movement. That's the hope. It's the first week and a half. It started off with a bang. So, I'm optimistic that we're going to, be doing things like eliminating the IRS, eliminating the income tax, all these kind of things that we all agree, are good and needed.
Yeah. And just to clarify, I will say this really quickly. The comment inevitably always comes up in these conversations. And I don't mean to, I want to be polite to everybody listening, but I find it to be a very generic statement that is brought up whenever these discussions happen, that is intended to sound provocative or like a very in-depth, and it's not, is the "I trust no man" statement. I trust no man. Personally, I think that is a recipe for sadness. And I feel sad for anybody out there who states and who truly believes that there is nobody in their life that they trust. There is no husband they trust. There is no wife they trust. There is nobody that they have to trust. I don't really know what people mean by that. When we say to recognize that, okay, so I've given this example before. I could give hundreds of examples of crime in my neighborhood where if crime is being committed and you have law enforcement come and they deal with that crime, they deal with that person, it's like justice has just been done. It doesn't mean that I'm making that police officer my Lord and Savior. All right. That is a completely different statement. It's not the same thing. I have a wife who I trust my wife. I trust that she is going to do what she says she's going to do. So I never know what people really mean by that. So when we're talking about, we're recognizing that good things are happening, that there is more of a return to the family life. There is a more uptick in homeschooling. We are seeing illegal criminals leave this country. Guys, like, again, it's like, okay, yeah, the government is doing all of these amazing things just to make us, to lower our suspicion so they could finally jump out and go, aha, we got you. We're rounding you up into the internment camps. Guys, like, come on, like guys, when QAnon first came out, and John Q, I've had this conversation, I think, with you in the past, is I thought immediately, I was like, back in 2019, you guys would have heard me out there. I'm like, this is Operation Trust. This is the Bolshevik Revolution. The communists are just creating this psyop just to lower, our basically lower our guns, right? The funny thing about this is that all the people, finally it hit me one day, all the people saying that, there has not been, J6, of course, was a total hoax, but it was, of course, broadcast in the media, as you guys know, that there's been no revolution in the media. But like, the same people claiming that the QAnon people are just being suckered into a false piece to pacify them. It's like, well, who isn't everybody pacified? Because I don't think anybody listening right now, I don't want to alert the FBI, I don't think anybody listening has actually gone out and led a revolution in the last 10 years. Like, it hasn't happened. So if anything, again, I'm not a QAnon guy, but I have learned to really appreciate these people because, man, these guys have it's like a conspiracy theory on steroids, where they have that they're seeing things happening out there that I never even imagined before, and they are waking up a lot of people to understanding the good. All right, so that's what excites me. So people are going to keep in the comments diverting back to, but Trump, the tangerine tornado, that kind of stuff. And it's like, can we get past the caricature and can we look at what is happening in this country right now? Because I thought the reason we were being keyboard warriors out there is to wake people up. And now that people are waking up, it seems like a lot of people aren't happy about that. I don't get that. I don't know what's going on. This is what I wanted to see. I want to see millions of people waking up, and we're seeing it. And yes, it comes in waves, guys. You know this. You know that, like, I woke up in 2015. When I woke up in 2015, it didn't just all come to me at once. Like, it's been 10 years of hyperactive research to get me to where I am now. Not to mention a lifetime of research. We can't, and also might I stress, I don't want to take our time, John K, I want you to jump back in. I see people like, well, I'll bring up RFK Jr. and somebody will be like, yeah, well, he believes this and that. I'm like, so what? So what? You believe, I bet you if you and I were to get in the same room, I'm not talking about you, John Q, but I bet if you and I were to get in the same room, we would disagree on some stuff, right? We would disagree. That's the human nature of things, that people have different perspective on things. And one of the great things about, excuse me for getting a little patriotic here on you guys, but one of the great things about this country is that we want state-run governments where a state can experiment, like California, for example. Do we want California running America? No. Do we want California running itself? Yes, because then we could look at California and go, you guys stink. Like, we don't want you. We don't want California for the rest of the country. It's actually good because then we could look at that and say, yes, let's steer away from that, right? And we're going to get these different people running these different states who are some are going to make mistakes. It's human nature. And some are going to do a better job. And it's okay if we disagree with people on things, if they have different understandings on the V word, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that again makes sense. John Q, did you have anything else you want to throw in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate question to ask. Well, what about Operation Trust? Why, how do you know Q is not just another Operation Trust? And the difference between Operation Trust, which was something that was implemented during the Bolshevik Revolution by the communists, designed to just make people say, oh, okay, yeah, the military's got this, we can stay at home and basically do nothing. There's been Operation Trust in Q is that Q has a call to action. Q is the overwhelming message of Q is wake up, wake others up, and take back your freedoms and take back your government, starting at the local level. Dig, research, learn for yourself, ask questions, think critically. And Q actually kind of taught in using the Socratic method, where he would ask questions, and then the Anons would go and research and dig and find the answers to those questions. Like that's the exact opposite of what Operation Trust was doing, right? Operation Trust was just like basically, sit back and enjoy the show. Now in the Q drops, there are some things about that, about sitting back and enjoying the show, but there are things that we can enjoy the show on, that we are not the ones that are meant to do it. There are some things that the military, patriots in the military can do that we just can't do as your average American. There are some things that patriots in law enforcement can do that we as an average American just can't do. But then there are things that we can do. And what the Q operation is a alliance, it's a civilian and military alliance, which is what you need to have a proper counterinsurgency, a successful counterinsurgency. You need a civilian and a military alliance. And in 2015, the Department of Defense put out the counterinsurgency manual called COIN, and talks about what you need for proper counterinsurgency. And I think we can all agree that the United States was taken over by an insurgency. It was taken over from within. It was, whether you want to talk about the 1871 and how we become a corporation, but globalists, essentially what happened was globalists infiltrated and took over our nation, our government, what is rightfully we the people's sovereignty, right? They took it over. And so in order to defeat that, in order to defeat it peacefully with minimal bloodshed, you need some sort of peaceful counterinsurgency. And that's really what the Q operation is all about, is a peaceful revolution and a counterinsurgency.
Yeah. Good. Does anyone else have anything you want to say? Come up on stage. You guys are welcome to come on up. You can ask me questions. Anything like that? I don't know, guys. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna change my opinion on this. I just, you guys, some of you guys cannot make me stop my happiness. That there is some. I mean, the sex trafficking of children, guys, is awful. Like, I want to ask a question for those of you who are just anti-government. The government is evil. They can do nothing wrong. Freemasons, Illuminati, so on and so forth. Deception. If you guys hear that there is like, what John Q, what is it, like 300%, or was it as high as 600%? It was this outrageous number of the sex trafficking that it's just gone through the roof. And if I could tell you guys out there that we can bring this astronomical number that's really high way down, and we could prove it, would you guys be happy or sad to hear that? Am I going to still keep doing the same thing? We're not, we're of the kingdom of heaven. This isn't our world, this kind of stuff. Or are we here to make a difference? Like, are we here to actually stop evil from happening? Because to me, it's to stand in the way of that and to try to stop it from happening, from people to actually, to stop other people from stopping evil is evil in itself. And I would be curious to hear some of your guys' responses out there to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, my position on that is, Yahusha said that the gates of hell would not prevail against his Ecclesia, right? So that means that the church, the Ecclesia, is supposed to be pushing back, and actually, you know what? That's the wrong term. Not pushing back against hell and evil. Hell and evil is supposed to be pushing back against the onslaught of the church. It says the gates of hell. Gates are a defensive thing. So the Ecclesia, we as the Ecclesia are supposed to be on the offensive against evil, whether it be in our own personal lives, whether it be in our families. You start with yourself and your family, and then your community, and so on and so forth. But it's really when when believers don't fill that void, and when they leave a void, that's when evil will rush into that vacuum and fill it. So, to any extent that evil increases, it's a result of the decrease and sort of the withdrawal of the people of Yahweh, as opposed to anything else. So yeah, that's why we're put here. We're put here to honor him and to be part of the mission that he's given us to go into all the world, preach the gospel, and make disciples of the nations, and teach them to obey his commands, right? The Great Commission. And when we fulfill the Great Commission, when we carry that out, when we make more disciples, when we make disciples of the nations, evil gets pushed back, because believers are now in those positions in government or in business or in arts and entertainment, right? As opposed to when believers abandon those areas of society, we shouldn't be surprised that evil is going to fill that vacuum.
Yeah. Well, let's switch topics really quickly and talk about the Kennedy assassination. Now, it is well known here in these parts that I have I wrote a paper and I put it into a book. Given a long time ago, I haven't given like a video presentation on it in probably like 5 years, but I am of the opinion, and I'm willing to change my opinion, I'm willing to be wrong, that that the Kennedy assassination was a hoax. And the reason I came to those conclusions was a few different reasons, but mainly the Zapruder film. Again, the comment by Luke for Tomorrow, if you say so, yes, I would say that if there are hundreds of thousands of children being kidnapped for purposes of the sex trade, and that these children are rescued, and that there are less children, I would say so, yes. I would say that I'm correct, that evil is being pushed back. And I would say actually it would be the opposite. It would be evil for anybody to want that to happen, to justify their own position that the government is evil. I would say that anyone who wants to justify the position that they want more of abortion, they want more children traded in sex trade over the border, things like that. They want more crime in communities from illegals. They want more of this, and they don't want the government to do anything about it, that actually is evil. I would say that you don't have to like the government, but the government can do good. No man is fully evil, or no man is fully good. That's just the fact of the matter is. So rather than focusing on the glass half empty all the time, I'm excited. What's the point? Why do I do what I do? What's the point of me doing this if I can't be happy when things start to go in a positive direction? Anyways, so let me just, okay. Let me see. Okay, the JFK. So I'm of the opinion, of course, that in the past that I still believe that the Zapruder film is a composite image. Something really wacky is going on with it. There's dozens of irregularities with it. That being said, I'm willing to back down on my position, say, you know what, I was wrong. I was right about the Zapruder film being wacky, but JFK maybe really was assassinated. One of the big reasons I came to that conclusion was because it's kind of like the moon landing footage. If they're going to fake the footage, and it's just a perfect kill shot from a grassy knoll that nobody is on except, all these Freemasons standing around, so on and so forth. But what do you think is going to come, first of all? I guess that's my first question. What do you think is going to come of the declassification process, and who is going to be implicated in it?
I think that at the end of it, if everything is declassified, and which I think it will be, I don't know if if there are going to be some things that just were already destroyed that don't no longer exist, and so they can't be declassified because documents no longer exist or whatever. But I do think in the end, based on, I shouldn't say I think because I don't know yet. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of it all, Mossad is actually implicated in the JFK assassination.
Tucker Carlson has already implicated that, I think, correct?
He has, yes. Now, which that really rings true for me because of something Kash Patel said on an interview, and I can't remember what show he was on. This is back before Trump had nominated him, or it may have been short. Yeah, I think it was even before the election. He had said that people who that he's seen the JFK files. He said that those who are, all the conspiracy theories that are out there, everyone, no one, he said, no one is asking the right question. Which I was like, no one. So, and I know a lot of the questions that have been asked about the JFK assassination, right? Like that's something that, we've all probably on this Discord channel here have all looked into. So I was racking my head trying to figure out, well, what haven't I asked? And yeah, I never thought about asking who was involved outside of our own agencies, who were maybe they be acting on behalf of or in cahoots with. And turns out that, yeah, look, JFK was trying to put the squash on the Israeli nuclear program, and that gave Mossad every reason to want him out of the picture. So I wouldn't be surprised. And in fact, the Q drops say that we are saving Israel for last, a very specific reason not mentioned a single time. And yeah, I mean, for a lot of the Anons are saying that mean from what we think, that means that all the corruption and the evil that is the Israeli deep state. Israel has a deep state, just like we have a deep state. I don't think the Israeli people themselves are the enemy. I don't think the people in the United States are the enemy. It's both of our deep states, and there's other countries that their deep state is really the enemy of the people. Yeah, the Israeli deep state, I think, is maybe going to be implicated for this, and that's going to be revealed. But we'll find out. I hope.
Now, I mean, obviously, that's a bit of a turn because if we obviously don't know yet what is going to come out in this paperwork. Of course, I think you and I were maybe I wasn't confusing with someone else as having this discussion that the U.S. government is not going to keep any paperwork that is going to implicate themselves. I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, they're not going to criminalize themselves. Yes, no, maybe.
I would agree with that. I would be shocked if they kept paperwork that would criminalize themselves. Yeah.
Well, but this is, a bit of a turn of events because correct me if I'm wrong, in the general JFK assassination conspiracies that started almost immediately from November 1963, I don't remember Israel being a forefront of the conversation. Do you?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So this would be.
That's why when I saw that thing from Tucker, I'm like, I bet you that's what Kash was talking about. That no one, because Tucker said he learned this from someone who saw the JFK files. Kash said no one was even asking the right question, and so I mean that rings true. Like I haven't heard of anyone asking that question.
So to answer your question, Kim, why would JFK worry about a nuclear program if he knows nuclear is fake? So, kind of interesting thing is that this is another topic that I have covered with the atomic bombs, the two that hit Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I still, to this day, am of the opinion that there was no major atomic style bomb that were dropped, that they were carpet bombed. Again, I'm willing to be wrong about that. And it's completely okay when we have different people looking at the facts and coming to different conclusions. That's the way it should be. We should have people coming to different conclusions. One of the people in our group, he stems from the Philippines. Shout out to Blessed Man, if he is listening. That I really appreciate is that he was like, he believed that they had he believed that the atomic bomb was a hoax, but they were actually developing hydrogen bombs. And that was part of the secret. And then once, Russia pushed forward with it, that they, they kind of like, oh yeah, we switched over away from, these atomic bombs. Kind of interesting thought. So I don't know. I mean, to answer your question, it's okay to be confused. I'm confused, and that's what leads me to look more into this and want to find out more. But yeah,
I think that I agree that the atomic bomb was a hoax, and I also acknowledge and understand that we have very, 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 very powerful weapons. So that makes a lot of sense. What a Blessed Man's theory is, it makes actually the most sense that they would be trying to lead everyone down a path that's impossible, atomic, when all along they're going down another path, hydrogen or whatever it might be, because you're absolutely going to want to lead your adversaries, in the wrong direction. You're going to want to make it seem like, oh, we don't want you to know this information, but it gets leaked out or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So the idea is that. And this kind of leads into maybe my next couple of points, is that within espionage, there are hoaxes within hoaxes, and there is misinformation purposely put out there to keep us away from something, another type of knowledge. So quickly, the question was asked. This is a good question. It needs to be addressed. Is Trump and Elon really going to Mars? John Q, give me your response. I know what it's going to be, but give me your response.
Well, I think that if Mars is, if there are, portals or gateways in the firmament, and or if there's a way to get to the outer lands on the moon map outside of our known realm, and you want to call those Mars. Yeah.
Okay. That was when I said I knew how you were going to respond. I didn't actually think you were going to respond that way. I thought Jennifer Hart's threw in this comment here. Apparently she's been listening to us in the past. I find this really fascinating. Maybe it was Graham, and he's listening right now. He's part of our posse that we get together every so often. And she put Mars is an acronym for Military Auxiliary Radio System. And this is one of the things I find really fascinating about this is, now I think probably everyone listening is on board with me that the earth is motionless. It is flat in the sense that sea is level, water finds its level. It's a flat realm we live in. Yes, we all know about the Colorado Rockies and so on and so forth, and Mount Everest and so on and so forth. We live under a solid firmament, and that there are, probably 7 to 10 either firmaments above us or worlds above us in terms of different layers, hence the planets, so on and so forth. But I find this really interesting. Maybe you can, where I'm going with this question now. I'm leading the witness. Military Auxiliary Radio System. Can you, because I want to talk a little bit about the crash last night too, with all the ice skaters, and is it a message? Because we've seen a lot of this. We saw the bomb go off in front of Trump Tower, and I know that there was kind of different views on that, and was the guy actually kind of a what was he he wasn't a Navy SEAL. He was an Army. Was he
Green Beret, yeah.
Green Beret. He was a Green Beret. Yeah, things like that. But so I don't really know the story on that, and I don't know if it was really coded. It was an attack on the Trump presidency, but I have seen enough, and this is what baffles my mind, because I like when the world is kind of a weird place, and I like dissecting things that are happening. And if I were to say that there's actually a civil war within our government, I think you're in agreement with that, John Q. I think you're of the opinion that it goes all the way back to the Kennedy administration, that there was like some sort of, correct? Yes? No?
Oh, yeah. And in
Yeah.
fact, I would say Kennedy said he was going to shatter the CIA into a million pieces, scattered to the wind. And the fact that I think he knew that Mossad and CIA were in cahoots, and that would be why he would want to, push back against an Israeli nuclear, put that in quotes, program.
So let me point out here, and to address this comment about the U.S. Space Force. See, these are the kind of things. This is where I would have been very, very critical about this 5 or 6 years ago, or less. And this is where I've had to unlearn a lot of what I've learned. Now, I am not. I'm not in favor. I'm a very transparent person, and so I'm not in favor of deception. Nevertheless, we live in a world of deception, and we see within the intel communities there's a lot of deception happening where they are. Where the way I would describe what I see happening, and is that we are literally seeing a spy versus spy game. We're seeing the Mission Impossible movies fleshed out in the media. All right. Now, the thing is with the U.S. Space Force, yeah, it's a joke in the sense that nobody's going to space. And isn't it interesting that they're not, right? But it's very clear when you actually look at the logo that it's actually talking about the web. It's the internet. And that's the space they're talking about. So in a way, they're kind of it. We have to kind of look at a lot of things that are happening and recognize that not is as all meets the eye. This is what I've had to unlearn recently. And so I'm fascinated. Now, people are going to accuse me, no, it's just like he's putting his trust in the government. I trust in God. Or yeah, but it's like, no, I don't trust in the government. I find this fascinating that we are literally seeing a war within the deep state. I mean, this, guys, just refer back to the X-Files in the 90s. They told us this was happening. You have within the Fed, within the CIA, within all the different agencies, within the deep state, they are literally at war with each other. So isn't it interesting? Maybe you have a different opinion on this, John Q, but they keep talking about the plane crash that went into the Potomac River, I believe. It was right there. It was coming into Ronald Reagan Airport. And I've been there. I have never flown in and out of Ronald Reagan Airport. I have flown out of Dulles many, many times. But just last September, I was there right across the river from the Ronald Reagan Airport. I was at a playground with my children, and I was just sitting there watching the airplanes come in and out. It was just really fun to watch. It was almost like something from like Wayne's World or something. And it was very relaxing. And so I could just visualize the whole thing when that helicopter comes in and hits it. But isn't it interesting that, they have all these ice skaters on there? And I can't help but wonder if this is a message from the deep state of ICE, right? Right now you have Trump going down with ICE to the border, and they're getting rid of all these criminals and stuff. They're changing flipping the entire script. That right there, some people, they're too, I guess, enlightened to recognize. I mean, they see that the script that has flipped. That still fascinates me. I am fascinated by the fact that we see this kind of war happening. John, I mean, would you agree, disagree? Do you think that do you think it was a freak incident? Do you think it was just a result of the DEI hires since the Obama administration? A lack of confidence, or do you think that there was something more to it? Do you think it was purposefully done?
Yeah, I mean, the flight path of that helo. First of all, it wasn't supposed to go above 200 feet. It was supposed to be 200 feet or lower, and that crash occurred at 350 feet. The plane had all of its landing lights on. I mean, you can watch the video. It's this bright light in the sky, and then you see the small little light of the helicopter. It took, from what I've seen, it took a sudden increase in altitude towards the end to run into this plane. It was headed, straight towards it with plenty of time to divert. Something happened. I mean, they have it's common knowledge. They have it out there that they have Blackhawks that can fly themselves. I forget which which local fort this came out of, but that fort is has got intel assets there. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if this was a deep state kind of message being sent. And you're absolutely right. That's how they communicate. They communicate in this kind of way where they will communicate via headlines or what have you, or they'll send a message. These people are sick. They'll send a message like this where they'll take out a whole bunch of innocent people to send a message. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there are a bunch of ice skaters from, United States ice skating team, the Russian ice skating team, and especially when I'm a believer that President Trump and President Putin are allies. They have what I would call a sovereign alliance that they've been working together over for quite a long time to remove deep states in their countries. And so to me, this is the message being sent by the deep state. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and let me rephrase this one more way so that everyone can understand this. One of the things that have been pushed forward for a long time is this idea of duality, the light versus black, right? The left and right hand of magic. And so whenever this discussion comes up, is usually there's somebody in the room that will throw that out there and be like, that's the end of discussion. I just blew it out of the water. It's like, actually, no, you didn't. You just scratched the surface, because that's really fascinating to me. Let's just assume that this is what we're watching, a Wizard of Oz, and not John Q, you know where I'm going with this. Let's just assume that Trump is just the light hand of magic, right? And going against the dark hand of magic, and that we are watching this unfold. Like, I guess to quote Gladiator, are you not entertained? I mean, this is fascinating, guys. And what I generally find is when people do that, it's more like a cop-out. Like, I just disproved it. I'm not interested anymore. I'm walking away. It's like, no, actually, then let's take that to theory and start looking at the fact that what you just said this is, because people say this all the time, not you, John Q, but people say this all the time, that this is the light and the dark hand of magic at war with each other. Wow. Okay. So let's actually watch this unfold. And by the way, that happens to be what we are seeing happen. We are literally seeing a government at war with itself. I have seen too much to discount this now as conspiracy theory. Like, I am literally seeing that there is within our government, there are bad guys. There are, you call them, some of you out there don't want to call them the good guys. But I do think that there are people out there who can do good. But there are heroes and villains, darkness, light, however you want to call it, white, black, magic, whatever. And they are at war with each other. And we see these things happening. We see this with the airplane crash last night. We saw that with the bomb explosion. And so the idea is that if you have, Glenda from the South, going at they drop a house on the east, the witch is going to be from the west is going to be agitated, right? And so, I find this all fascinating. Was there anything else you wanted to add on Trumpism or anything like that before we change the subject?
I just want to say that, Yah uses people to judge evil. And to take down evil regimes. He's done that in scripture. And I'm going to make this comparison. It's only in this one aspect. I'm not saying that I'm making a comparison in all aspects, but in this one aspect, you can compare Trump and Moses. Moses was raised in the Egyptian royal household. He was on the inside. He was one of them. And Yah used Moses to destroy the Egyptian king, the Pharaoh. And I think that, he's using that same playbook to destroy and judge the deep state, global cabal, evil, pedophile banking system. I really do.
Man, there's so much that plays into this, everything from time travel. And, I was just, before I get on the time travel thing, I am again convinced, guys, without me giving, because I don't know, I'm just observing these events and I'm fascinated by them. Without making these generic quotes, or claims that, don't really go anywhere. I am amazed at watching. I am convinced that Trump was a mole, that he was actually a mole that infiltrated. Doesn't mean he's a good guy. Okay. Doesn't mean he's, right. But he was infiltrated the dark, working with the white hats. And it came out, when it was it, Junk? It was that video. I remember you shared it before. It was, I think, our last get together with the guys when he was at that dinner and Hillary Clinton was there. And I remember like Roseanne was talking about it, and who else was talking about it? I can't remember who.
Yeah,
but...
the Al Smith dinner, which, it's a traditional dinner that's had every presidential election in New York, where both presidential candidates get together and roast each other and stuff. And I mean, Trump just, he went, he didn't pull any punches. He talked about Hillary's taking over entire villages in Haiti, and if you've done the research into Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation has done in Haiti and the human trafficking that they've been involved in, I mean, that was just, he walked into a den of vipers and just laid it all out. And I do think it was at that moment that they realized, oh, we don't control him anymore. If we ever did, they may have thought it, and they may have thought he was one of them. Like, I agree with you. I think he was a mole. He has a history of being a mole. It's documented in the 1980s. He worked to help take down the New York crime syndicate families with his casinos that he built and things, and his hotels, whatever. And he had the entire thing bugged, and these mob bosses were coming in thinking that he was playing ball. They were playing ball with him, and he worked with Giuliani and the FBI on a major sting operation there. So he's got a documented history of doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody else want to jump into the conversation tonight? I know we've been talking about this for a long time. Of course, it's appropriate. It's the first couple weeks of a new administration. And I don't know. Some of you guys are trying to bring me down in there about, being fascinated with these, this kind of civil war within the government, the white hats. I find the whole narrative fascinating. The truth is truly stranger than fiction. I will point out that for those of you that are claiming that the same people are, order out of chaos, and it's the same rules that are being applied here, I hope you guys do understand that you can't hold to the light in the dark, magic, because that is literally two different kind of schools of thought combating each other, in kind of a Harry Potter sense. Whereas, either there's two things happening. There's like a monkey in the back room, writing the script, and they're handing out the script, and Nancy Pelosi is laughing her ass off. Oh, this week my husband gets hit with the hammer, in the face, and it's like they're handing out to everybody. They're all in on it. Or, that's one possible perspective that many people hold, and you have a right to hold that. Complete right, and maybe you're correct. And that's a great thing about different opinions, is that we can all come together and go, you know what? If I'm wrong about something, at least I have research to fall back on. I used to believe that. That used to be my worldview. I have now come out of that because I think it's true in a lot of regards. I think it used to be that way. I think that used to be the paradigm that we lived under. I do think there's been a switch that happened in the last 15 years or so. But, and then again, the other end is that we're seeing two actual different kind of like a butting of heads of two different entities at war with each other. And I find that absolutely fascinating. I'm just shocked that some people are like, yawn, move on to something else. All right. Okay, somebody else is raising their hand. Let me just check who else is wanting to come up. Everybody's welcome to come up. Matthew, come on up. You've been invited. Come up to the stage. Talk with us. How's it going tonight? Your microphone's on. Just your microphone is off. Flip it on. Welcome. You're on stage, and you left. Okay, maybe he'll be back. All right. Raising your hand to come back up again. Okay. Invite to speak, and you're being invited to speak. Come on up. And you're up on stage.
Yeah, all right. Can you hear me right?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Perfect. Yeah, so somebody was talking about how Trump loves Hillary now. So the only thing it threw me back to was there's a reason why he said that, because Trump called Hillary beautiful Hillary. And so the whole take on this is like, when you go into that Anon movement and you go in deeper into it, a lot of these things have already been taken care of. And so you have to take in the dynamic under that lens that there's a 2.0 of a lot of these people, deep fakes, actors. It's all a movie. It's like literally a movie. So like Trump mentions like the central casting quite a bit too. So it's like there's all these different references that simulate that these people are not the good people. It's kind of interesting that Jim Carrey finally comes out, says like, I'm going out in retirement to go ahead and play this evil doctor for like the children's movie, the
Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Was it Dr. Robotnik or Egghead or whatever his name? I actually took my children to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3, so I admit to that. They really wanted to go see it. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's like central casting. It's all movie. And that's part of, that's most people's take when you look into the Anon thing. It's like, yeah, it's all over the place. There's so many like references to deep fakes. It's so easy to like pretend you're somebody else. And it's like, he pops out and then all the people that are like tentatively buried, hey, like what's witness protection for? Like if you are a known person, you can't go through witness protection like normal individuals. You have to reinvent yourself and you have to, quote unquote, die. So like a lot of people who have been good have been reinventing themselves. They might be somebody else. And a lot of people who are bad have been taken care of during the, basically during the time of COVID and whatnot.
Okay, so let's talk about that because that's a profound statement. So what you mean by that, I mean, let's just lay it out there. So Hillary Clinton, is she still alive?
I would say she's gone without trying to get in trouble, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what we can and can't say on YouTube. I mean, I don't want to be, but yeah, so I just want to make this practical.
There was somebody doing the robot dance. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I want to just make this practical so people can understand this. So one of the ideas out there is that many of these people, I mean, I've heard even, I've heard different theories on Tucker Carlson being a robot. I can't unsee that now. I can't unsee the animatronic Tucker Carlson. I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, so you got guys like, Bill Gates. Is he been taken out? He's still with us. Fauci, have they been taken care of?
You can read up on Gates. Not too hard to find. Africa. They took care of him.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I mean, even with like Anthony Fauci.
So like, Melinda Gates, in my opinion, is actually acted by Robin Williams.
But
so
I didn't hear that before. This is good. This is good.
So like, that's the thing. It's like he has experience with this, and if you actually you look at the image of her face and you like copy this on, it's like, wait a second, what if he had to fake his death? Because of course, if he was one of the good ones, knew a little too much, he can't just be out there in the open. So you have to like put him in a different position. So it's like, okay, same thing with the Drew Carey. Who knows if he was good or bad? Maybe he just got another lease on life, playing. Well,
wait, who's
let's see.
Okay. Yeah, that's the first I've ever heard that. I mean, it makes sense. The Robin Williams bowed out in a very, from the world stage in a very Robin Williams way. I don't need to repeat it for those of you who knows how he, quote unquote, died. But I had never heard that before, that he's playing Bill Gates' wife. And I can't like unsee that now.
We'll throw some memes, some pictures in it, I'm sure. John Q-Anon on top of it. We've seen a few things.
Okay.
Like for example, I put a video in chat. Of course, you're probably going to play this for the YouTube audience, but I put a video in chat of what we're told was, at the 9/11 ceremony in 2016, Hillary Clinton, she just got like heat stroke or something, and we're told that that was she just was not feeling well, and so they took her back to her apartment and everything. But when you actually watch the video, they're loading her into this van, and her hands are behind her back in a cupped position. And then the Hillary that they trotted out afterwards, a couple hours later, when supposedly she went to Chelsea's apartment or whatever, is a different Hillary. So yeah, I personally think that Hillary was arrested then, and I think she's in Gitmo, or if she's still alive, she's in Gitmo. I think there's a lot of people in Gitmo. There's a reason that Club Gitmo was expanded under the Trump administration. Massive expansions were happening. There are military tribunal courts being built in Gitmo, and why? Like we're done with the war on terror. Why is Trump expanding Gitmo under his first administration, and why is he now expanding? He just announced an expansion of 30,000 more beds at Club Gitmo.
Because it's
supposedly for illegal immigrants who are criminals who their countries won't take back, but could it be for something else?
I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on this. I don't want to throw it off topic, but this was a great little quotation that came up. Chad said, "I'm still waiting for the internet to prove all presidents are not related." Now, the person who popularized this was David Icke. And this is, of course, where we get into like blue blood research and even serpent seed research, but nobody even argues against it. They're 100% related. Now, I've changed my thought process on this, particularly tying this into the little season, and you're both little seasonist with me. And so it is true that all presidents are very royal. And in fact, I think, I could be wrong, but I think Trump was more royal than Hillary Clinton, though Hillary Clinton is insanely royal. And even Al Gore, if you guys remember, when he was running for president back in 2000 against Bush, back then they were like, well, he's just like a little hick farm boy. He's a nobody. And it wasn't until afterwards where it came out, oh, okay, no, the guy is like insanely royal. And what are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I don't want to lead the witness, but I'm curious, just your before I give my.
Oh, I got this one.
Okay, Matthew, I want to hear your honest little season thought on this. I am leading the witness a little bit by saying little season.
So I'll provide a few other theories out here. And it's like, if you like really went into the lizard people and like all that stuff. And so if you go into that logic, there's a conspiracy rabbit trail where it's like, there are basically the ones that are like in royalty, like they've never died. Like, so they're just reinventing. So they're part of a demonic bloodline and they never die. So it's like, you look at these old pictures and it's like, they're just ever so slightly changing. Like that looks exactly like this person. And so then the people that they do that, of course, are going to be celebrities and whatnot. But like across all the royal lines seems to be the case. They can track them down. So it's like, which ones are a part of that and which ones are not. But it's like, in theory, it's not so much that they're part of, say, the same bloodline, but they just never die. They just change themselves. So they pretend to die. And because they're not like human, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, no,
but anyway, there's the direction.
This seems to line up what you're saying pretty much with my understanding of David Icke's research, with he's been around for a lot longer than any of us have. And I've only listened to so many of his kind of outline podcasts. It seems to be something he's implying. The quick and easy kind of practical explanation is that the Queen of England, who died a couple of years ago now, I think in 2022, that she was one of the old reptilian kind of leader queens, and that when her host body finally dies, that she will then enter into another body. And so they keep these same few entities keep kind of replaying different, kind of entering different bodies along the way and playing it out. Now that's one right there. But I'm kind of curious, because the thing is that the fact of the matter is that these presidents are very royal. There's a lot of commonalities I've noticed, brownie points if you have a lot of Mayflower relatives. For example, Marilyn Monroe was obviously never president, but she had an insane amount of patriarch grandfathers, something like 12 to 15 or something like that, who came over on the Mayflower, which is just unbelievably insane that anyone would have that many. So she was super royal. She was one of the most royal people ever. And so you see these very royal people come to stardom. And, the thing is that as a lot of us start researching our genealogies, we start finding, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I had a relative on the Mayflower. Oh, I'm married. I'm related to, King Edward or whatever, as well, or, it goes back. But I'm going to just ask this question, and I'm totally curious because all of us here believe we are in the little season. We have come from the other side of the millennial kingdom. Within the millennial kingdom, you had these kings and priests that were executing the Torah, the righteousness of Yahweh on the earth. They were here to judge the world, to rule the world through government. But I'm sure there are many people saying they trust no man and maybe rebelled against these guys. But you had these guys who were executing the Torah. They were judging humanity. They were ruling over humanity. They were trying to make them healthy. They were trying to withhold evil and bring in the blessing rather than the curse. Within the history of, when you look at the biblical timeline, you have, stemming from King David, we see the split happen with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And of course, the house of Israel never had a righteous king. They were all evil, but they all came from David. And this lineage had a right to rule. So my question is, this is going to sound preposterous to some, and some of you listening, this might click. Is it possible that these ruling elites, is it possible that they're maybe not the seed of the serpent, but they're actually, and I don't want to throw the reptilian research out the window because I'm about to give a presentation on it. The reptilian thing is totally legit. It's totally real. And these reptilians could be outsider invaders into body hosts. Okay. But I'm talking about the actual blood. I'm not talking about reptilians. I'm talking about actual lineage. Can this right to rule actually come from Israel? Okay.
So no, I've got some opinions on this here. Some pieces I've been kind of putting together in my head, but I haven't really had a chance to flesh it out and really talk about it. So President Trump, on his mother's side, traces directly back to William Wallace. And according to official history, William Wallace was, he's famous for standing up against the crown in the 1200s, which in our timeline, the 1200s is coming towards the end of the little season. Now, I agree with you, and your research shows that Great Britain was kind of the central hub of the millennial kingdom. Now, I also think that towards the end of the little season, it wasn't just a sudden instant like taking over, but that the rebellious factions in the kind of in the outer parts were starting to creep in in the wilderness. They were starting to kind of creep in and rebel and take over. And so, is it possible that the throne of England was taken over by factions that were in cahoots and setting the stage for what they knew was going to happen? Because Scripture said, at the end of 1,000 years, Satan is going to be released from his prison. And was William Wallace standing up against that incursion? Potentially he was. And wouldn't it be fascinating that at the end of the little season, a descendant of William Wallace is being used by Yah to overthrow and help, root out these same entities that were, starting to take over towards the end of the of the Millennial Kingdom. I think that would certainly be a fascinating story arc. I believe that Yahweh is the best, author out there. Like, we as humans are made in His image, and we have a gift of storytelling. That He has the best gift of story. He's the best storyteller out there. So yeah, I could absolutely see something like that in play.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've been really slow at developing and kind of quiet about is, I mean, it's interesting you brought up William Wallace. I could even bring up a guy like Robin Hood. I mean, you know, if we take it at face value, the story of Robin Hood is a story of really satanic rebellion. But with all the propaganda we're looking at and this idea that the Millennial Kingdom happened and there were all these rebellions going on, I've been kind of slow to, you know, for example, I bought this book on Joan of Arc that is just the straight legal script. Like the trial of Joan of Arc was an official history. It is the most first fully recorded event where like they had like these scribes just sitting there writing all the dialogue and they recorded the whole thing. And I've been just looking at this stuff and going, you know, is this all fake history? Is it real history? What's really going on here? And I don't really have, I don't have a response to that. What of course you and I are in agreement on is that the Millennial Kingdom ended probably around the 1500-ish. I think you're kind of on the same timeline. And I'm of the opinion that Tartaria is the little season, the kind of the first leg of it that was using the tech of the MK. But Tartaria came out of what I would call the Gog and Magog region. And when you look up at all the medieval maps, it was in the outer darkness up there. And so it ties in with Marco Polo and them expanding the East and bringing it out, the kind of worldwide kind of attack with that. But yeah, I'm just going back to this idea of we naturally, nobody has really challenged this idea. It's just kind of been thrown out there that all the ruling kings of this earth are all illegitimate and they all stole the throne, which could be the case. But what if there is, so, you know, it ties into Nephilim research and they're looking for this bloodline and that kind of stuff. That could totally be it. But what if the kings of the earth are actually, there's something they're tracing from Israel itself. Like, what if they actually do have, I know this is enough to get me like, you know, tomatoes thrown at me. But what if they actually have a right to rule? Just something I think about sometimes. So again, and this was brought up because I was thinking about the fact that, you know, it's probably, yes, they are all related. Trump is related to the rest of them. And with the kings of Israel and the kings of Judah, you actually had some kings who, you know, the Bible is very forthright. They're like, you know, this king, you know, he did some things right. This king of Judah, he did some things right, but he did a lot of things wrong. And I think that we should, you know, have that kind of recognition where it's due. We recognize that in each man, there is good and there's bad. A man has potential for good or bad. And if a man does good, instead of focusing on, yeah, but what about the bad? Well, okay, fine. We recognize that he has bad in him too, but there is good. I don't know. That's just my whole paradigm shift. That's my whole I feel a lot of pressure within the truther community to say that they're all bad, 100% bad. What was it like in True Lies when Jamie Lee Curtis asked Schwarzenegger if he ever killed anyone? He says, yeah, but they were all bad, right? Does anyone else have anything else? We're kind of running up towards the end here. Well, we got about 15 more minutes. Does anybody else want to come?
I was thinking about.
Go ahead, Matthew.
I was thinking about your comments on, you know, everybody has some good in them. It kind of relates to the time, like when you're changing your mind on Paul a little bit there. Little throwback.
Yeah. I'll be talking more about Paul in about probably a week from now. Tomorrow, my presentation is going to be on the apostles taught Torah. I have a few Paul quotes in there. I'm purposely leaving them out. A lot of the lawless crowd out there they're gonna watch that and they're gonna see that as a weakness. Oh, he can't talk about Paul. But I will be doing a whole thing on why Paul was Torah observant. I fully believe that. Then again, for those of you out there who are anti-Paul, you guys have the right to be anti-Paul. Total. I mean, if you're like, I read Paul and I don't see how he lines up with the Torah. I cannot justify this guy in my Bible. I think he's leading people astray. You have a perfect right not to read the guy. Perfect right. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. And I don't condemn those who do that. But, you know, as I point out, there is some serious cognitive dissonance out there if people are like, oh yeah, Paul, he was anti-Torah. He threw the Torah out. So let's throw the Torah out. It's like, so you're going to throw out 95% of the Bible? You're going to throw out the instructions in righteous living that are eternal and true. It's the definition of truth just because this guy wrote these 12 letters to churches saying not to. Like, that is some serious, that's like some of the greatest cognitive dissonance in the world that I have ever seen. Now, just to be clear to everyone, I believe that Paul did teach Torah. I'm fine to be wrong with that. I believe in giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I did go through that thing where it was like the next thing, I'm going to throw Paul out and I'm going to start this whole crusade. And I went down that path. For me, it got darker and darker and darker and darker. Scripture got darker, and I had to backtrack. I had to eat it. I had to admit that I was wrong. Came back, and in wrestling with Paul, I had to wrestle with my whole worldview. And I can say that in doing that, the more I wrestle with Paul, the more I learn, and the more I'm amazed. I go, oh my goodness, I hate to say because this is so cliche. The guy was a freaking genius. I think he was a genius, and I think that he wasn't a very good writer. I'll be frank. You know, some people, that's going to trigger some people. This is the Bible. Well, he wasn't a very good writer. He actually wasn't. He could have been. He could have done a much better job at exemplifying his point. And I kind of wonder if he realized that these letters that he's writing is someday going to be actual books in the Bible. He might have had a little bit of a different approach. I don't think he was thinking that his letters are going to be attached to the end of the Torah. Like, I don't know if that was really in his thinking. But that's a whole different discussion. And it really hurts when you're a researcher and you have all this research and you go down this path and then you realize, oh my goodness, I might have been wrong. And you have to reevaluate everything. And now you're like, I have all this work that is wrong, and I got to throw this out. How many months or years of my life have I spent being wrong? And this is one of my complaints against a lot of the truther community, is that people will go down a path. It's a one-way road, and they will die on that hill. They will never change. And somebody in here brought up, there's been a few things I backed up on. One was Paul. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Though there are cases in Scripture in the New Testament where scribes have come along and they've changed a few things here and there. We have caught them at it. There's been a few cases with Paul, a few in the Gospels, so on and so forth. Another one was the Transfiguration. Some people brought up in here. I have come to the opinion that though I know that there are celebrities and popular people who are really the opposite sex, that they claim to be. We all know, like Michelle Obama is a classic example. Like, you know, that's just kind of like low-hanging fruit. I started going down that path of transvestigation, and I quickly saw how dark and destructive it was, and how demeaning it was to women. And I started seeing it had the spirit of the accuser to it, where now people are just accusing everyone. And the Torah is very, very serious about accusing. Like, if you're going to play the part of the accuser, so I mean, you have a lot of people out there. Let's say we have a lot of examples in the narrative where people really are having sex changes. We know this. Like the Wachowski brothers became the Wachowski sisters. There's nothing hidden there. Maybe they started out as the sisters, became the brothers, reverted back. We really don't know. But to accuse somebody and not really know, just because they have maybe a masculine feature, like, you know, oh, their shoulders or their nose or their ears or this, their eyebrows, their forehead, you know, that's kind of masculine. And so we start accusing them like that. My next question would be, to take it to the Torah, if you're going to accuse someone of something, what do you want to see happen? Because if you falsely accuse somebody, what you want that to happen to them is open to happen to you. And that's a scary thought. And that's what pulled me back from Paul. Because when I finally realized that you have all these people accusing him of something, who claims to be a brother in the faith, that, you know, it's like, well, what do we want to have happen to Paul? Well, if we're wrong and we're falsely accusing him, then we could fall under that judgment. So that really frightened me a great deal, put the fear of Yah in me. And so there's some things like that with Transvestigation and others where I pulled back because I just saw, like, you couldn't, everybody was just being accused of everything. like every man is a woman, every woman's a man, and it becomes like outrageous in the accusation department. Not to say that there isn't truth to it that's leading. Okay, I have somebody else who wants to come forward. Mel loves Yah. You are invited to speak. Come on up to the stage. You are up on the stage. Welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Shalom.
Shalom.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. I just wanted to add something that about Paul and then everything that we've talked about just real quick is if, you guys are right about the darkness being revealed through the light, and then light is being revealed, and all these things are being uncovered, and we're seeing some amazing things right now. When it comes to Paul, I would think that could be true with him too. Like, perhaps my prayer would be that the deceptions and the changes maybe that the Roman Catholic Church made, or the things that were added because we know there were things that were added and things that were changed, but there's just so many discrepancies that there's got to be something else that was done. If he isn't, if he is who he says he was, there are some discrepancies that we need to work out. So perhaps the prayer should be that the light will be shown on that as well, along with all these other great deceptions and all this great awakening that we're seeing. Anyways, I just wanted to add that.
Can you give maybe like a practical example of what you're talking about with Paul?
So, for example, we did in our study, when we did a video, we talked about how the scriptures were tampered with, and I don't have all my notes in front of me, but when Paul says that a woman shouldn't speak in church, the first thing that is the problem with this letter is that, first of all, we don't see what was said on the other side. On most of these letters, you need to have sufficient witnesses, and so we only have the one-sided letter. But that passage, that just little blip inside the passage in that letter, has been moved around, and it shows in evidence, and Brother Jason showed this, that it was added. And so if there's one thing there, that you have a discrepancy.
I think that
in Paul.
I think that you were showing earlier. I thought you were going to go with this, that what Paul was doing was, because what he was doing was he was taking these arguments that were being put forward in the churches he was writing to, and he was setting up the argument, and then he would give his response. Am I
true?
Correctly? Yeah.
True. That's the theory.
Well,
what we need is the letter.
Yeah.
We need the other letter to prove the theory true. But it would make sense that he consistently, what he does is he is quoting the letter that we can't see.
Yeah.
He's responding to the letter, and he's sometimes sarcastic about what they said in the letter. And then whatever he's being sarcastic about, they're actually, the Protestant church or the Roman Catholic Church is taking it, or the Christian church today is taking it and saying, that's not sarcasm. He's being truthful that the Torah is done away with. So my hope and prayer is that we'll see that so that we can prove it. I mean, that's a theory. I think it's a really good theory.
Yeah.
That in the structure of Paul's writing, he is responding to the letter that we can't see, and he's being sarcastic, and he's actually saying what they're saying first, and then he's responding to it.
Yes, and which would explain why Paul comes across as so bipolar. Right. He has these two opposite
opinions. And it's so confusing sometimes. Yeah,
he has two opposite opinions within a paragraph of each other. And I'm in agreement with you, and that's my working theory. That's why I wanted to I was hoping to clarify that a little bit more. What I think is happening with Paul is that he's setting up an argument, and he sets up like a position that people are taking. And he was dealing with a lot of people who were, coming into the church, and they didn't want to keep the Torah. And so he's setting up these positions, and then and then he drops his argument, and it always ends with the Torah's righteousness? Do we go on sinning, keep on sinning that grace may abound? By no means. These kind of things, right? And so, yeah. And but I have a few different theories on Paul. Pamela, welcome. Jump in anytime you'd like. I want to say really quickly that this, this is, it's hard to have these kind of conversations because people get triggered. But I have been of the opinion for a long time that Paul is what I would call a midrash. He is writing in a stylistic letter that we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of letters just like this. It was what the Pharisees did. He's writing. He's a former Pharisee. He's got Pharisees hounding him. You got Christians. You got these new converts to Messiah. There were Gentiles coming into Israel, and they're sitting in the synagogue on Sabbath next to Pharisees. It's a very tumultuous time. And he is, giving his opinion. That's what I see of these. I don't see these on par with the Torah in any way, shape, or form. He is giving his opinion on how to live. And the way I conclude this is that Paul has a right to his opinion. Now that right there, some people are going to hear that and go, blasphemy. No, it's like, no, he has a right to his opinion. And I think that we see this, by the way, in the book of Acts, like at the Jerusalem Council, was that Acts 15, where there were multiple different opinions coming in. And of course, Yaakov, James is the one that decides the argument. But they all have different opinions. And they're all trying to figure out, how do we take the Torah and apply it to our lives? And how do we apply it to all these Gentiles coming in? And those are the same questions we're asking today as we go back to the Torah and we read it and go, ask the question, what does it mean to keep the Sabbath day? What does that mean? What does that look like? Fire or no fire, right? These are questions we ask. Perfectly acceptable to ask these questions. We're not all going to agree, and we're all trying our best. That's how I read his letters. They are an amazing document in history that expresses the arguments that were happening at that time. There's a second theory that I want to quickly highlight. So I believe that there was a historical Paul, as told to us in the book of Acts, that Paul is clearly Torah observant. That's the whole narrative. He's clearly Sabbath keeping, feast keeping, clean eating Paul. There are several letters that are attributed to Paul that are unquestionably his. Galatians, Romans, 1 Corinthians, unquestionably his. But then there are a few, I think it's 1st, 2nd Timothy, Titus, maybe, things like that, where there are different theories on it that Paul either didn't write them or that they were pieced together after his death by his disciples, which I actually kind of like that one a little bit better. And that, they were trying to keep his writings alive. That being said, I think that we can kind of, it's okay to read these letters with a little bit of skepticism, knowing that our controllers have had their hands on them and have used them as propaganda purposes to lead people away from Yah's instructions in righteous living. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah. So Pamela, welcome. What's on your mind? Pamela, I can't hear you if you're talking, but I see your microphone is off. So, or on, I should say. Your microphone is on. Now it's off. And it's back on.
Is she back in?
She's here. I can hear you. I can hear you, Mel, but I can't hear her.
I was just going to add, for anybody that's on here now that is coming in or watching this or listening, and they're newer to this, the light has been shown, and what is going to happen in case it already hasn't happened to you, and the reason why you've got to go through the whole motions of questioning everything is because once you come to the truth that the Torah is not done away with, the first thing that everyone is going to quote you is Paul. And then when you do have an opinion that, these are just letters from Paul and it's just his opinion, then they're going to tell you that all scripture is Holy Spirit breathed from the Ruach. And we know that that passage is actually talking about the Torah and the prophets and Messiah. It's not talking about Paul's writings. Paul's writings weren't in a book at that time. And so you're going to go through these motions of fighting and combating people, and it's always Paul. And so that's why it's so difficult. And I'm just saying this, most of us already know that, but just in case there's someone new out there, but because there is so much deception, I can't say either way. And I don't think it would be fair to, because by 2 or 3 witnesses, right, we start to establish truth. And because we can't see the other side of most of those letters, all we can do is pray that the light will be revealed, what's really true and what has been hidden.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the, the thing is with Paul, and this ties in back into, politics, people say trust no man, but then, they trust Paul, I guess. But I speak a little facetiously, because I think that, I feel bad for anybody out there that there's nobody in their life they can trust, where they say trust no man. But at the end of the day, I give Paul the benefit of the doubt. I decided, if I get to eternity and Yah's like, yeah, Paul didn't make the cut, I won't be surprised. I really won't. I will not be surprised. I'll be sad though. I think I'll be genuinely sad. Like, oh man, I really wanted for him to. I'll be thrilled that I make it, of course, too. But I give him the benefit of the doubt. I've learned much from him. And there was something else I wanted to say, but now I can't remember. But I could see why so many within the Torah community become radicalized with being anti-Paul, because as you said, Mel, when we come into this and people find out that we're obeying the 90, I say 95%. I don't know how much Paul's letters actually constitute the Bible. It's something like that, like 5% or something like that. But we got the other 95%, 97%. I don't know. Much more if we add in all the Apocrypha and stuff that all tell us to be obedient to our Father's commands, hands down. Messiah says it, the apostles say it, but then they got Paul, and it's just interface Paul. And I get it why they toss him out. Like, you know what? Forget it. Just toss him out. Now, the thing is when we present something, when we present the truth, the question we all need to make is, do we make the truth attractive or unattractive, right? We want to make it attractive. We want to make it beautiful. We want to speak the truth. But there is something to be said about, imagine guys, or maybe ladies, okay, you're going on a date. You're excited. You're courting someone. You're really interested in this person. You want to get married to this person. And this person, it could be a guy or girl, right? Whatever the scenario is. And they say, I'm going to cook you this amazing dinner. Come over to my house. We're going to get to know each other. I'm going to cook you this amazing meal. And you show up and they ask you like what you want. Maybe you want a steak dinner with potatoes or whatever. And they show up and they serve it to you on a trash can lid. And it's like, you could have put that on a nice plate. It's the same food, but that looks very unattractive. And that's the way a lot of us deliver the truth to people. And we have the attitude, well, the truth is the truth. Yeah, well, there is when we're dealing with the mysteries of heaven as well, there is a type of sensitivity to it. And so I say that because I have yet to perfect I still don't know what the better approach is. So give you guys some practical examples tonight. Christians come and say, what? You keep the Sabbath? You keep the dietary laws? That's Judaizing. They start quoting Paul. I could say this. I could say, well, I could ask him, did Paul keep the Torah, do away with the Torah? And they're like, oh, he did away with it. Then I could say, well, he's a false prophet. According to the Torah, he's a false prophet, which then I've given that experiment many times. It has never ended well. There has never been a Christian who goes, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness. They get super offended. And they base out of probably fear and things like that they're like in this, it never ends well for them. But if I tried a different approach and I'm like, okay, well, I think he did keep the Torah, and let's start talking about this. And then, as you guys know, that's an endless debate that never ends. It never ends. And so it's really, really tough. What are your thoughts on that, Mel? Do you have any thoughts on how do we address that issue?
I'm sure there's ways that people have done it that maybe they've had a little success, but I think mostly, your fruit, right? I always try to just point to what Messiah says. He's our shepherd. We're supposed to hear his voice. Paul has a lot of good writing, but the voice of our shepherd is the voice of Messiah. And so I always just point to his scriptures, and that what Peter says, Kepha in 2 Peter, is that Paul is a dangerous writing that should only be read by people who are knowledgeable in Torah. And unless you really understand the Old Testament scriptures, then you should stick with your Messiah and really get close to him first and then hear his voice. But that doesn't always work. I mean, a lot of times it's the same response that you get with the other arguments. But, you know, that's what I would say, I guess.
Okay, now this has been a great discussion, guys. I think we're I'm looking at the time. Yeah, we are kind of out of time. I do want to end it on this comment. This was a great comment by Ashley. Ashley, you were laying on thick with me tonight, and I came back a few times. I would like Ashley to have this discussion more often about government, and can Yah work through government? I think that is a perfectly good biblical question to ask. Did Yah work through Babylon's government? Did he work through the Roman government? Did he work through the Persian government? Did he work through the Egyptian government? And did he place people in power there? I think that's a great question we can have. But this was one that you asked me earlier. We'll end on this. And thank you, Mel, Matthew, John Q. If you guys want to jump in as well, you can answer this, because this is a little seasoned question. While you're up on stage, you can stay or leave if you like. She asked, Noel, I saw you asking me actually earlier tonight on this. Who do you think the beast and false prophet are if they are in the lake of fire already? So, of course, one of the things I've said many times is I'm really not worried about the next Antichrist. That's all fear porn. So you have, let's take Trump, for example. You have, I have grown up my entire life, from Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton. Nobody was claiming George W. Bush was the Antichrist. Nobody thought that guy was going to be it. But so we skip over that guy. But you get to Obama was a huge Antichrist, Bill Clinton, that kind of stuff. And so you have, look at all the propaganda that's been pushed through the media on Trump. He's Hitler, he's Hitler, he's Hitler, he's Hitler. Hitler, just the point of just stupidity. Clearly he's not Hitler. But then you have on the right, they're like, oh, he's the Antichrist. It's just the same thing. It's just Hitler. Like I could care less if the Illuminati ever roll out their Antichrist card. Fine, roll it out. I don't care, because the thing is that we already have enough Antichrist to deal with now. We know what the spirit of Antichrist is. The spirit of Antichrist is lawlessness. The spirit of Antichrist is everywhere on the internet, on YouTube channels everywhere, in groups everywhere. It is people saying that the law, that they do not have to keep the law. The law has been done away with. Actually, there's two qualifications for Antichrist in the Bible, which are both covered by Revelation 14:12. The first is saying that Messiah never came in the flesh. This would be addressing specifically, not addressing the Gnostics, is addressing the Jews who say they worship Yahuwah but are denying Yeshua. That is the spirit of Antichrist. The second one is, as Paul would define in, was it 2 Thessalonians, which is backed by other places, it is lawlessness. So we have that everywhere. Okay. So then let's tackle these two here. I had to push that out first. Let's talk about the beast and false prophet. What is a false prophet? Well, we know in Revelation chapter, was it 2022, or maybe it was Revelation 19, that it defines what the spirit of prophecy is. The spirit of prophecy is the giving witness to Yahushua HaMashiach. All right. Now, this is specifically in the context of time and again in John's writings, Revelation 14:12, which is the polar opposite of the Antichrist. The two qualifications. The set apart are those who keep the Father's commands, so they're not lawless, and they keep the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach, which they're agreeing that he came in the flesh and that he testifies to the Father's commands. You see how that works? So a false prophet would still be in the spirit of lawlessness. There are those who are prophesying in a way that gives a false Jesus. Well, I use the word Jesus there, a lawless Jesus. That is a false prophet. They're everywhere amongst us. But then the beast gets really interesting, because I am of the opinion, this is just my opinion, I think I could back up the other two clearly with scripture. So yeah, it's still my opinion, but I think it's biblically sound. But my idea on the beast is that these beasts are actually different entities, that that these different governments are represented by these actual real entities. So there was a beast. There's been different beasts throughout history thrown in the lake of fire. So yeah, is there a beast entity that is in charge and running the American empire now? Sure. Yeah. I mean, are we going to see repeated events of beasts being judged, false prophets being judged, antichrist being judged throughout history and thrown in the lake of fire? Yes, I believe that is a cyclical event. And hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So that's just my opinion on that. And keep in mind that, we know like the 70 Allahayam that ruled over the nations. According to my research, they have already been judged either to be righteous or wicked. And I'm not the judge of them. That's Yah. He did that. Not really. We'll find out in the end who made it and who didn't. There's probably, again, so it's like with the 200 watchers, when the 200 watchers fell, it's a very specific number. I seem to get the idea that they were replaced. It wasn't like just vacant, like Yah put 200 more watchers in place. And so we can see that if there are continual spiritual entities falling throughout history, it's not going to be vacant or void. He's just going to fill it again in another spot. So does that make sense? That's just my opinion. That's where I'm at based on all my research. Pamela, it looks like you're trying to get up here and say something. So I'm trying my best to bring you up. You have been invited again. You're up on stage. What's on your mind? I'm sorry you're having...
You're muted. You're muted, Pamela.
I wish I could unmute you on my end.
How about that?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yay!
Welcome.
Okay. I just wanted, going back to the Paul topic, I just want to underscore. I mean, Mel has already brought this up. We can't really judge Paul because, number one, we don't have his original letters in the original language. We don't have them. We just don't. And so what we have are translations, copies of copies of copies. So we can't judge Paul because we don't have his original letters. And as she said, we only have one side of whatever he's talking about. And the only ones who could have judged Paul were the people of his day. And there would have had to been two witnesses. Now, I'm not excusing Paul, and I'm not accusing Paul. I'm just saying we can't. Whatever anyone's opinion is of Paul, whether they think he teaches Torah or he doesn't teach Torah, we personally should avoid accusing him of things because we don't know. He could be entirely innocent, and some scribe down the road, as they were translating or transcribing his letters, they could have made changes. Mel brought up that it looks like, something was inserted here or there. So we can't really accuse him because he could have been a faithful brother. He could have been a faithful brother to us. And we know that the enemy hijacks things. They certainly, have been putting their fingers in things. So as you have said, Noel, it's a scary thing to accuse someone of something. So if I would say just you're entitled to your opinion. A person is entitled to their opinion, but it is an opinion. The only people who could have judged Paul were the people of his day, because the ones who had his letters in hand. And there has been no historical evidence that he was judged and expelled from the early fellowships. So that was just, my own two little cents worth, as it were.
Thank you, Pamela. And just to add, something I've noticed with Paul is that one thing that we can't deny in this discussion is that Paul was always highly controversial. I mean, that's very clear in Peter's letter, where he's like, man, people are reading Paul's stuff and going like lawless. And he actually says that the very people who are twisting it are the ones who are already twisting Moses to their own destruction. So he's making it clear that the people who are twisting Paul are the ones that are leading towards doing away with the Torah. So you got, and that's been a highly discussed passage. But then you go to Clement in his letter to the Corinthians. It was Paul's letter. Clement's letter to the Corinthians. That he says the same thing. He's like, man, you guys are like, they were divided this church. There were some who are anti-Paul, like we don't want Paul taught in this church. And there was others like, no, we do want Paul taught in this church. And Clement comes in and he's like, man, we need unity here. There's a lot of division over Paul. And Clement backed Paul. Clement believed that Paul was a Torah guy, and Clement very much was a Torah guy. So it is interesting that the two sources I have, the two witnesses that are trying to bring people together under Paul, are Torah observant individuals. Whereas you have a lot of other people in the early church who are just Paul. And they don't want the other dudes. And they want to use him for their propaganda. So it's kind of interesting pieces of the evidence for me that leads me to. Oh, go ahead, Pamela.
Well, I was just going to say that I agree that has always been. I mean, you can look historically how that these different factions. I mean, in more recent histories, you have the Protestant Church, the Catholic Church, and Jewish people. They're all trying to control. They're all trying to control Scripture. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie, The Book of Eli. Evil people want to control Scripture so that they can control people. They want to control the people. And we don't know. Paul may have had a caustic personality. Some people may have been against him because, he did have influence. And you have that. You have jealousies, and we don't know. We weren't there. All we have is just, things that, hundreds and hundreds, whatever timeline you're going by, thousands perhaps of years have passed since Paul. And as I said, the only ones who could have judged him would have been, the foundation members, the elders of the early fellowships. And they did not. And as you said, Clement was backing him, and he was urging unity. And however, if you feel about Paul, and I have been, I've wavered about Paul, and I'm not settled yet. But I do know that I can't accuse him. I can't excuse him because I don't have his letters. He has some really, really powerful teachings in his letters. But as you said, they are letters. Everything has to be measured by Torah. Everything. And, if it has to line up with that. And those statements that seem to contradict, we don't know what they said originally. Because like I said, after this many years, because he wrote a letter, and it would have been, it would not have been, on some really good papyrus or parchment, so they didn't endure. We've have our copies, etc., translations of copies, more translations. So we can't say definitively that those statements that seem to contradict, we don't know the original intent of what Paul was trying to say.
Pamela, you touched on a point that became a major issue for me deciding, and the key, everyone, boys and girls listening, is that I give Paul the benefit of the doubt. And I choose to read his letters, giving him the benefit of the doubt and wrestling with him and learning a great amount of stuff. Really is a very, very interesting, like looking into an interesting mind. And you had mentioned, Pamela, that it was left to the apostles, to that generation, to judge him. Now, when we go now, before I make this next comment, I want to make clear to everyone listening that at the Unexpected Cosmology Discord, we have a Paul channel where you can go in there. If you're anti-Paul, fine, give your evidence. Go in there and give your evidence. We have respectful conversations there. Give your pro arguments, give your anti arguments. It's all there. The truth is the truth. Okay, we'll hear it out. But when I was in the anti-Paul camp, one of the things that kept bothering me and was that you start learning that, James, the letter James was a rebuttal to the Galatians, and Jude was apparently a rebuttal to one of Paul's letters or another. And there's some interesting comparisons there with James and Galatians. But what really started bothering me is I started going around asking the question. I'm like, well, why didn't the apostles ever come out and actually condemn him? Say Paul is a false teacher. He is leading you astray, because they had no problem doing that with Simon Magus. And of course, you get into the Paul research, and apparently Paul is also Simon Magus, even though they were, standing in the same room together at some points. And they're like, well, it was all coded. It was all they didn't want to say it. It was all coded. It's like, no. Yahushua had no problem calling out people specifically. If this guy was doing what, he was going around leading, like literally like Balaam. We know that there were Balaam characters. It's written about in the epistles. We know what Simon Magus was doing, and he was called out. It became a perplexing issue to me that it's like, wait a second, why do the only account we have of the apostles with Paul is in Acts, and they're working together, they had their opportunity to condemn him, to judge him as a heretic. They had their opportunity, and they really botched it. And I hate to say that, if that's true, they botched it. They botched a very good opportunity. And so that was one of the things too that kind of led me back to it. I'm not condemning anybody who's anti-Paul. You guys all have that right to if he, causes you to stumble, then you have that right to say, you know what, I'm not going to read his letters, right? Not condemning anybody. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, John Q. Oh, go ahead, John Q.
Yeah, real quick, Noel, I just wanted to kind of add to what your answer to Ashley, and that is, yeah, absolutely. Yah sets up kings, he removes kings, and he gives kings, or in our day and age, presidents or directors of the FBI or what have you, he gives them a very specific mandate. And that mandate is to be his minister, that you can find this from Romans 13, verse 4, his minister for your good, to your good. So if you do that which is evil, be afraid. So evil is supposed to be afraid of kings or presidents or directors of the FBI or what have you. For he bears not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of Yahweh, a revenger, or an avenger to execute wrath upon him that does evil. So when people in those positions don't do that, they get judged, they get removed, and Yah replaces them with someone else. And I also want to say I love these discussions. These are fantastic and amazing. If you're in YouTube land right now, come on over to our Discord, and we have these discussions often. They're not recorded, but they're the best discussions. And I'm going to be hopping into the voice chat after this for an after party. So if anyone wants to join me, feel free.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And I really would like to do this more often. Somebody asked how often I do this. Of course, we do this, as he said, every Friday. This was kind of an impromptu, kind of just Thursday night thing that's been broadcast on YouTube. Usually I put these on Patreon. And but I'm trying to be on YouTube more often. I've been kind of slack on YouTube recently, so I'm trying to be out there more often. And of course, we keep ever busy. As you guys hopefully know, we are Pamela, who should be given the red carpet. I hope she is literally walking on a red carpet, barefooted, or in maybe glass slippers or something like that. But she is translating the Paleo scripture, so she's always a guest of honor around here. She's really the matriarch. And this is like a 12 to 15-year project. And this is, as a ministry, this is what we're doing. We want to bring out the Paleo to the world and translate the entire Bible through the Paleo, which is a huge undertaking. So thank you, everyone, for being a support. Thank you, everyone, for being a ministry support, praying for us. And the thing is that we don't all get along here, or not, that came out wrong. We don't all agree on a lot of different things here. And as a platform, I have stated for this ministry, I ask that everyone just sign on to Revelation 14:12, that you keep the Father's commands as testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. From there, we can springboard off and we could talk about all these different things. And we could disagree. That's okay. So love you guys. We'll do this again soon.
Hey, Polyhart here. Was calling my dad this morning, wishing him a Happy New Year, and he said, "Hey, Happy New Year back, son." and he was listening to Alexander Scornby read the book of Ezekiel on audiobook, and I was like, that's awesome. I love listening to good translations. But the thing is, with a lot of times when I go to research biblical translations, I want to look up a passage, I want to see what the original Hebrew says, and I want to see what the real meaning is behind it, and I can't find a lot of good translations out there. I go to BibleHub.com, 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 and I go there and I'll look at each word and find out what the best solution is to this verse. If I want to try to look at something in the context of something else. Really interesting stuff. My friend Pamela Glasgow is translating the entire Bible into the Paleo-Hebrew, the first written language of the Hebrews. It was Paleo. It was like a pictorial language. It's not only spelt and built, it's a unique pictorial language, kind of like the Chinese or Japanese or Korean is a pictorial language, as well as a said language and a spelt language. When you add a different thing to the end, it creates the entire idea from the beginning, makes it a new idea. So Paleo-Hebrew, really impactful, and we are raising money for her to do that for a full-time job / business / career / ministry. And Noel Hadley with the unexpectedcosmology.com is leading the charge on getting her translations out to the world. So below, I'm going to list a link on how you can give to see the Paleo-Hebrew Bible come to its full fruition. Also, she's got some of the Bible, I believe all the Torah, and some of the Psalms are being done now. It's a continual work, but I'm excited. It's going to be spectacular. So how you can help this come to pass is by your financial gift, your giving to Pamela, so that she can continue on in the calling of her life, which it's going to be awesome. One day I want to go to BibleHub.com and see the Paleo-Hebrew as well, which would be mind-blowing. So you have a good day, and I'll see you later. Bye.